You never quite know when you're going to need a little help out there on the water, and hopefully when you do, there's somebody there to assist, just like some of the people we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Speaking of needing a little help out on the water, have you ever thought about taking your boat to the Bahamas? Will you be at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show at the end of the month? If so, hang out till the end of the video, we want to talk to you. But let's get this episode started. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Australia, where this was the scene this past week when water police officers along with the Coast Guard assisted in the rescue of 3 men off of Port Lonsdale. Authorities have been told that a captain and 2 crew members from the Port Phillip Sea Pilot launch were on their boat approximately 500 yards offshore when all of a sudden the vessel ran aground around 11:30 p.m. Emergency services was quickly alerted and searched the area, and all 3 crew members were found standing on rocks next to the crashed vessel. This crew is responsible for taking pilots out to larger cargo ships who will then pilot the vessel in and out of Port Lonsdale. The crew had done several successful trips throughout the day until the last one, when all of a sudden their course was diverted to a different path for some reason. One of the strangest parts of this is those who are familiar with commercial mariners would know that pilot boat captains are some of the most experienced people on the water and actually know their local waterways probably better than anybody, leading local authorities to believe that this situation was probably either caused by mechanical error or possible navigational equipment failure. Now, the good news is no injuries were reported in this situation, but at this time, an investigation is underway to try and determine the cause. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Denmark, where this was the scene just a few days ago when the cargo vessel Anne Rousing arrived in Copenhagen carrying some scrap metal, when shortly after arrival, smoke began to plume from the vessel, and the next thing they know, the vessel was engulfed in flames. Videos and pictures that were issued by the fire department showed flames and large amounts of smoke coming from the 278-foot vessel's open cargo hold. Local fire crews reportedly battled the blaze for over 30 hours before they were finally able to extinguish the flames. The crews called the operation a success, as there were concerns of the vessel possibly capsizing after dousing it with water for 30 hours, and no injuries were reported, which were all positive signs. Now, it doesn't mean it wasn't without struggles. About halfway through fighting the blaze, as we mentioned, dousing the vessel continuously with water trying to cool the flames actually caused the vessel to begin to list with the amount of water in it, which means that during the process of fighting the fire, they actually had to stop, de-water the vessel to restabilize it to prevent it from capsizing. At this time, an investigation has been launched to try and determine the cause, but they're still not sure if it was caused by a spark from the vessel or a spark from the cargo itself. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Israel, where, as you probably already know, there's quite a bit of turmoil going on in the country at this time. But that turmoil sparked so fast, one thing it did was strand thousands of American citizens in the country, as with everything going on, most commercial flights were grounded. The US government then began working with Royal Caribbean to try and come up with an effort to be able to get those citizens out. The plan was formed where the Rhapsody of the Sea, a vessel that had been sailing in the region but had canceled all of its itineraries in the wake of everything going on, was to be used to try and go ahead and pull those US citizens back out. Jason Liberty, the president and CEO of the company, was quoted as saying in an email that was sent to employees, "Now with enhanced safety precautions in place, our ship is providing free passage, including accommodations and food for Americans in the region wishing to leave and find safer ground. The vessel is going to be taking US citizens to Cyprus, where US citizens will then have to arrange their own air passage back out of the country. It is said that the Rhapsody of the Sea will be able to carry up to 2,400 US citizens back out of Israel, a pretty good use of an asset that had been sitting idle." Our next story to make the boating news is going to be one that the Coast Guard kind of announced in the past couple weeks, where they've seen an increase in fake calls for help. As you probably already would know, this is absolutely illegal, but there's lots of reasons not to do this. 1, you could possibly divert assets away from somebody who really needs help. 2, you're also endangering our Coast Guard members. They put their lives on the line every single time they go out there. There's no need to send them out into additional situations if nothing's really going on. Here are a few examples of some of the calls they've received recently.
This is U.S. Coast Guard Sector Southeast. What's your GPS position? Over.
Hey again, Jackson.
Station calling. This is Coast Guard Sector Southeast.
Oh, I wasn't calling you.
Vessel previously transmitting about sinking. This is U.S. Coast Guard Sector Southeast on Channel 16. What's your position? Over.
69?
Station transmitting. This is Coast Guard Sector Southeast. We cannot switch to Channel 69. Station previously transmitting. This is Coast Guard Sector Southeast. What's your position? Over.
69.
Vessel in distress, this is Coast Guard Sector Southeast. What is the name of your vessel and how many people do you have on board, over?
Sorry, these guys made me do it. Roger. I am not in distress.
Roger, good copy on all. U.S. Coast Guard Sector Southeast, standing by, channel 16.
I gas in the middle of Port 1 Main. Can you send a rescue boat up to come and get me? I'm in a boat. Blue Excalibur. Speedboat. Just ran out of gas. Near a oil factory. So, send a rescue, come get me. SOS. There's a 25-foot speedboat stuck in the middle of Main. Can you, SOS? There's an SOS. SOS.
These hoax calls were made over VHF Channel 16, which is only to be used for international hailing and distress only. Knowingly transmitting false distress calls is a federal crime that can be punishable by up to 10 years in prison with a fine upwards of $250,000. It's not worth it, guys. Please don't do this, and if you can catch anybody doing it, report them to the authorities. And our next story to make the boating news this week, well, that's going to be the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. That's right, we're exactly 1 week from the start of one of the largest boat shows in the world. And if you plan on attending that boat show, feel free to stop by and see us, especially if you have any interest in possibly one day taking your boat to the Bahamas, as we'll be hosting our annual seminar on how to take a small vessel to the Bahamas. So if you're going to be in Fort Lauderdale at the boat show either Thursday, October 26th or Friday, October 27th, we'll be hosting this seminar over at the Convention Center in the seminar booth at 11 a.m. So feel free, stop by, say hello, learn everything you need to do to take your vessel to the Bahamas. We do these trips every year, as can be seen by some of the images in the background. Some of these images came from my good friend Salt Life Isaac, who winds up doing these trips with us every year. But on top of that as well, if you come to the seminar, we're actually going to give you an opportunity to go ahead and sign up and join us on one of our Bahamas trips next year. There will actually be 6 opportunities to sign up, as we'll be doing 4 trips to Bimini, 1 trip to Grand Bahamas, and we're even going to do an extended trip out to Eleuthera in the Bahamas that'll cover over 10 days of time in the Bahamas. We look forward to seeing you guys at the show. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Mateus Matchek, Roller115, Alex Poo, and Adam Coolidge did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.